Okay.
So how did you get into music? I'm just actually a little curious. What got you into like singing, or what made you get to that?
Well, it's when you're a kid, you just kind of learn whatever's around you. And so my parents had different records they played, and my dad can sing, and he had a microphone at the house, and his amp, you see these amps now, they're like this big. That amp was bigger than a washing machine, and the microphone weighed about 25 pounds, and my sister and I would fight over it. But we would just memorize songs. I remember learning like the Statler Brothers songs, all of them, Counting Flowers on the Wall, which I thought about doing tonight, but then the Muppets came out with their own version, and by a family of rats called the Rattler Brothers, about Beaker being on a coffee high. And so I thought, well, I hate to do that. So if you want to hear Counting Flowers on the Wall, a really good rendition, I recommend the Muppets, the Rattler Brothers. So, but then Granny and Granddad bought me a piano and signed me up for lessons, and it just went from there. So.
How old were you when you got on the piano?
I was 5. I was in kindergarten, and they had lessons through a guy named Jamie Burnett, and he showed me a few things, and then he went off to college, and then I started taking from another teacher. And I didn't know it was weird, but I always played and sang, and every time I did that at her house, she always said, "I love to hear you sing. No one else does that." And I thought, why? Why wouldn't anybody do this?
That's right.
So.
That's the most fun part of playing music, I think. A lot of times is singing along with the songs.
It is, and I was listening last week. There's a podcast. James Ford, he had said, adults just don't sing anymore unless we're in a house of worship. We don't sing, and I thought, well, that's kind of sad, because when I go through Walmart or somewhere, I hear people singing along to whatever's playing. We just kind of have, I guess, lost that, coming in a group and just doing it. I don't know why.
I don't know. That's I don't know. I don't know if maybe that ties into things being more online now, or more people being more distant, or what. Maybe that's some of the struggles, or the things that I'm trying to push through with the online shows, because a lot of like performances rely on engagement with people.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, energy bouncing off each other and stuff. And it's kind of weird. Like, you don't really get that a lot of times from these people. I mean, they can chat, although some of them are older and don't know how to chat back or something like that. And so you get, like, a lot of love from different ways. So, I don't know. It's a little different. But when did you first, like, actually perform with somebody? Perform in front of somebody?
I'd have been 6. I was at Emmanuel Baptist Church, and they needed somebody to sing "What Child Is This?" And Dee Michaels, I'll never forget, she played guitar beautifully, and I sang the song, and I practiced that thing like crazy, and I said, I think I'll sing every verse. So you kind of
big expectations of yourself.
Well, when you're a kid, until somebody deflates your balloon and says you stink, you just enjoy doing it. And so that's why I kind of think it's important not to deflate somebody too soon, because some people are worried about reading words, and so they don't recognize their voice isn't matching. Mm-hmm. And some people can make it happen, but other people learn it a little bit later and do a good job.
No,
so
somebody might say you should have deflated my balloon a little bit more.
Hey, I wanted you to sing. And so I think if you're doing it, you do it, and you do it well. So I'm not going to deflate your balloon.
Well, that's nice, I guess.
Yeah.
When did you stop with the bluegrass band, or what was tell me about the bluegrass band, because I don't think I've ever actually heard many stories about it.
Well.
And if you can't tell, I'm trying to kind of walk through the timeline of you on playing music. Okay.
Well, let's see. This would have been a couple years before you were born. So it had been around, I guess, 95, 96, 97 was when we did it. Just a guy I worked with, he started singing, and then some other people kind of fell in, and we just enjoyed singing around Richmond and some things in, bluegrass festivals, different places like that. And bluegrass festivals, if you've never been, they're a great place to go and to hear just some wonderful talent. But the other neat thing about a bluegrass festival is after the shows are done on the stage, everybody goes back to their campsite and people will start playing. And so about 10 or 20 people who are near them bring their instruments and they come up and it's like a circle. And the people who are good, and there's always some good people, they're right there in the middle of the circle and they're going to town. And then people who are learning kind of hang back. And you get to practice in a no judgment zone. Like you don't hit the chord, nobody says anything. If you are good and you're like, okay, I think I'm ready to take a break, you just kind of catch the eye of whoever's singing and they'll nod and you take your first break. And it's just an encouraging way to learn music. And the neat thing about bluegrass music, especially back then, is it didn't matter how old you were or how young you were or your education level or anything like that. Once you got on the instrument, you were just you in that instrument, and people appreciated talent. Didn't matter what you looked like, didn't matter about anything. And that was just so neat to be around.
And that ended, I guess, about when I was born.
Yeah, about 6 months before you were born, yeah.
Do you harbor any jealousy?
Oh, no. No, I was glad that I got to have you. And so, that was a life-changing time for me, so,
That was 22 years ago, or more, depending on when you...
About 22 and a half, yeah.
22 and a half years ago. Nowadays, what's important to you? What are you doing mostly now?
Well...
Because I don't live with you anymore, so now what's...
Yeah, you don't. So we have entered empty nest. And, you moved out at 20. And so here's your dad and I. And you were the third person to move out, So it's kind of like, you see things coming. And it's been a lot of fun. I hate to say that because it sounds like we didn't love you guys. We did. It was just neat to see all three of you kind of go and spread your wings. And I was telling somebody today at lunch, I said, being an empty nester is almost like when you go to college for the first time, because all of a sudden now there is no, hey, I have to keep up with things. I need to put stuff away because here's this kid watching me. I need to organize it. I get mad at your dad, and, back then, and you didn't want to say, you are a knucklehead in front of your child, so you just grin and smile. And
right
now,
you can punch him,
we don't get in that many fights, but when we do, you just kind of go at it, and then we have not eaten at the table since the day you moved out. I mean, we sit in our little chairs, and we either watch some type of documentary, just sit there and talk in the living room. And it's almost like a kid when they move out of the house and they don't have to do anything. And, you want to cook? I don't want to cook. You want to cook? No. Let's just pick up something.
That's right.
Sure.
Go out, pick up Chick-fil-A one night.
Pizza, Hey, you want to eat just a BLT? Yeah, I'll eat a BLT. So, no nutritional requirements now.
Ben said, awesome interview so far.
Oh, he's sweet. He's sweet. I love him.
All right, look, I had a couple people, and it maybe if somebody now that they're here and listening to the talk, they could even pop in the chat something they want to ask you. But a couple people wrote me some questions that they wanted to ask you. And
okay.
These might either be like little stories you could tell. But one of them was Lily Lundy wanted to know, she wanted to hear about your first date.
Well, Lily, I will tell the story, but I hope you never do this. I was playing on a volleyball team with James, and he kept calling me for the schedule, and I was so obtuse I didn't realize he was trying to ask me out, so I just kept saying, well, the game's at such and such time. And then finally I said, do you just want me to bring you a schedule? And he said, well, I wanted to see if you wanted to go eat dinner. And I said, okay.
I said, come on, kid.
I know. And I feel bad. So, guys, I just want to encourage you, if you're having a hard time asking somebody out, it does work. Just some of us are oblivions. So we go out to eat at King's Barbecue, and I ordered a fried chicken sandwich plain. And so our meals come, And I bit into mine, and it had mayonnaise on it, and mayonnaise is like kryptonite to me, and I just spit it out across the table. And he's like, and I remember thinking, he was such a nice guy. Too bad he's never asking me out, but I cannot get that mayonnaise down.
Mm-mm.
And so
I'm
that
with
was
you on that one, by the way.
that was the first date, and he did ask me out again, and we wound up getting married. And I must say, even when he proposed to me, I was like, what? I just, some people are a little bit slower on the relationship thing. So Lily, that was it, and it wasn't pretty.
Well, look at you now. Now, how long have y'all been married?
Almost 28 years in
That's
December,
right.
you know. And I still, if that mayonnaise was on a sandwich, I would spit it out across the table.
Well, you just let him know where you were coming from right off the bat.
That's right. You pick your level of crazy. I have always thought that, and he knew what he was getting into. So.
He said he's glad you caught on.
Yeah, it could have been like a decade, huh?
Yeah. Maybe it went too long. Maybe he would have given up. Well, speaking of Dad, he wanted to know, what is your favorite what is your favorite memory with me? And that might be hard. It's a really great one, maybe, unless you know a favorite.
When people ask me most what I remember about you, and I'm putting this in, I always want to say, like, something profound. Like, I want people to think, boy, she had it together, and they did all this stuff. But really, you know, the relationship, it's a close relationship. And I taught you, and you taught me. Mm-hmm. But when I was teaching you to drive, and we were up on Hull Street, and we were going through this yellow light, and you screamed, "What do I do?" And I yelled, "Stop!" And we stopped in the middle of the intersection, and all these people couldn't go, and we're just laughing. We can't even move. And I just still remember thinking, this is what it's supposed to be. Just, I felt like even
just
when
sitting
we
in the middle of the intersection,
laughed, we couldn't move. But even when we got mad at each other, I still remember you would come in and say, "Now, Mom, I'm still mad at you, but I wanted to tell you about this." And you'd tell this little story and go on.
That's
and,
right.
You know, and so I just had a good time. But that's probably one of my favorite memories, is just sitting in the middle of an intersection laughing and not being able to do anything.
I remember that. That's funny.
So, yeah, you'd have been 16, I guess, then.
Just learning to drive. Did you have any bad moments learning to drive? How old were you when you learned to drive?
Well, I probably shouldn't admit this on there, but
that's okay. You're older now. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, but if Granny and Granddad are watching, I apologize in advance. But Daniel Henderson, he was a guy I went to school with. He had this little MG, and Daniel passed away 2 years ago from cancer. But he taught me to drive that MG. I'd been like 15. Mm-hmm. And so Jeanette and I were home in the summer, and once I figured out how to drive his MG, we had this little Honda Civic there, and Mom and Dad went to work, and she said, "Let's go take the car and go get something to eat." And I said, "Well, only if I can go by the library first." So I went to the library, I got a book, and I took her to Burger King. We thought we were like the coolest things in the world. So it was just pretty easy back then.
You never told them that story?
I hope not. And we did it a lot, too. So if I needed a book from the library, I'd just drive down there.
You're incriminating yourself here.
I know. It wasn't a good thing. Don't anybody else do that.
So this one, just to make this a little bit less confusing, somebody on Instagram who follows me is also named Noah Kester. He's got the same name as me.
Very interesting.
And he lives in Texas right now, but he wanted to know, why or how did you pick the name Noah? Obviously, you didn't have much of a choice in the last name, but how did you pick the name Noah? What brought you to it? Was it just like you liked the name, or was there some meaning behind it? Were there any other names on the table?
Well, this is a long answer to a little question, but now all through my teen years and early 20s, I didn't think I wanted kids. And so when I got married, I talked your dad into having a vasectomy. And so Ashley would have been 8, Tiffany would have been 6 when we got married.
Putting his business out there.
I know it. And I enjoyed them. And, you know, so they're getting older, and they're about 12 and 15. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun to do this from the beginning. And so, and that was also a time in my life where I had a life-changing event. I became a Christian right at that same time. Mm-hmm. And so James had the vasectomy, the reversal, which should not have worked really, but it did miraculously, and we got you. And so because of that event, because I was a believer then, I started getting the Bible. I was like, what does God say about stuff? And then I started looking through the Old Testament for names. And so I'd come out to your dad, like, we found out we were having a boy, and I said, what do you think about this name? And I remember I wanted this name, Jubal Kester. And Jubal played the harp and the flute. And your dad said, no. And so I was like, okay. Well, threw out a couple more names, and I said, what about Noah? It means comfort and blessing. And that's what you were. You were a blessing. We didn't think we were going to get a kid, and we did. And so that's the name that stuck. But I still wish I could have called you Jubal.
You could have nicknamed me that.
Nope, your dad wasn't having it. He likes names to be names. Like he's James, and nobody calls him Jim. He just likes...
Call your name.
Call your name.
All right. Well, there's the answer on how did you pick Noah.
Yeah.
Speaking of me, what has been your favorite part of being a mom? Or what is your favorite part of being a mom? I guess you still are. You haven't lost that title yet.
No, and, whether you're a mom or you're a stepmom, a lot of times you're going through things and you're thinking, it cannot get any better. Because people are learning stuff and they're doing stuff, and you get to be a part of it. Mm-hmm. And then each year it gets better. And you think, all right, well, couldn't get any better than this. And it does. And then now it's 3 grown kids, and people still want a vacation with us.
Right.
I guess it's just
still
the
want
growth.
To come see you.
Yeah, come see us. It's the growth. It's the learning. I've learned more from 3 kids than, anything. I've been taught mercy and forgiveness and things like that. And so right. I don't know what I would say about it. It's just been fun, and every year really does get better.
That was Kirsten Hennard asked that one.
Oh, Kirsten. In Florida.
In Florida, yeah. And then my wife, your daughter-in-law, she wanted to know. And I didn't expect this question from her.
Okay.
I'll be honest. But she wanted to ask it because she thinks Granny says she is sorry she missed her early driving experience.
Oh, brother, oh no. Sorry, mother.
My wife, she thinks that you always do an excellent job talking to people about them. But she wanted to hear, what is a book that you think everyone should read? Since one of your favorite things to do is read books. What's a book you think everybody should read? And yeah.
Well, there's a lot of good books out there.
I put a guess out there. My guess was you were going to say either Pride and Prejudice or Pilgrim's Progress.
Pilgrim's Progress is hard. It's a hard read because it... and I took it one time and read it on vacation. That's a dumb thing to do because it's where somebody discovers that the world is full of nothingness and that God is the one who loves us and our joys in Him. So that's not a good book to take on vacation.
Right, yeah.
But I would say I like The Hobbit. Now, I know we've each read it at least 11 times.
It's a great book.
And the thing I like about The Hobbit is that it reminds you can sit and do nothing, or you can just kind of get out there. And even when you get out there, and this has happened to me a couple times, life doesn't always go the way you want it to. But at least you just didn't sit. And so I find The Hobbit's a fun book, but it has a lot of things in it that you can kind of relate to life. So that's why I like that one.
I don't know what my favorite book would be. Peyton says my favorite book's The Hobbit as well. And I think there's something to be said about that book. It's a good read, and kind of like you were saying, you can really reference it a lot and quote it. It's a quotable book, or maybe not the actual words they're saying, but the experiences that they're dealing with are really relatable.
Yeah.
I think most people can feel the idea that, hey, there's a journey that I have to go on, and there's an end in sight, and even the end is a little bit scary too.
Yeah.
And so I think it really kind of can hit for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I really like that book. My favorite book just for pleasure of reading is this 12 book series, The Ranger's Apprentice.
I remember those.
Which similarly have a really good tone that go across. And the plot of the story is a young boy is apprenticed to basically like a scout for a kingdom. And they just experience adventures, and he grows up and learns and matures and all this stuff. But they're really great books. I just love them a lot. I was trying to think of what I would want to ask you, but I couldn't think of it. So I think what I would just say is, I'm so glad that you came on to sing. I just saw a bat fly across the window in front of us.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm kind of terrified of bats, so.
All right, either way. That's enough talking. That was a good little bit of talking, actually.
Okay.
You want to play a couple more songs?
Why not?
So what we'll do now, and if somebody, we can probably throw in a couple other questions. If somebody was like, oh, man, I really wish she had said this or that, you can just write it to me, and we can probably slip them in, because we got 5 more songs, but actually, I don't know how we ordered this, but somehow I'm singing a couple of these ones. So
I was hoping to listen and maybe sing harmony on some, so.
All right. Well, either way. This song right here is another duet. And
Give me that mouse.
Yeah, let me get you the mouse. I will say, I just appreciate everybody listening to the interview. That's something a little different. I didn't know how it would go, because especially one thing I think was interesting about this particular interview is you're my mom. And so it was like, oh, I know what she's going to say. And so, and I think there's a lot of skills to being an viewer.
So is that what you're going to start doing on this show, or?
Well, so what I'd like to do is have friends come on. The long-term goal is that I could host a full band on here, and I wouldn't have to play.
Okay.
I could just sit over in the corner and talk to them and just really tell them how great they are and let them really showcase who they are. I'd love to do that for the city that we live in here, Richmond, and just let people have just another platform to present themselves. I wish I had started doing this at the beginning of the year so that they could, hopefully by this time, I could have maybe had an audience that would listen, and I could have helped out people going through COVID who can't get to bars and stuff to a show right now. But until that time, what I think will be coming up is friends and people I know who play music but maybe aren't like career-wise musicians, but just people who really love to play and are good at it. I'd love to have them on, and we can just play and just have a great time, and I can keep doing this and talking to them. But long-term is I would love to just sit on the sidelines and just appreciate people and help people show themselves off and do what they love to do.